Hi, I'm Danny and these are my Diecast Disasters. In this video I'm going to be making a custom set out of this Matchbox Super Kings DAF pallet truck and a pretty beat up old super fast Flareside pickup. The pallet truck was produced from 79 until 1982, the same year as they began making the pickup, which ran until 1999. So the pallet truck is obviously missing all of its pallets and stuff. It also used to come with a forklift, so I can't really restore it. And the truck is in really bad condition. A lot of the plastic parts are actually perishing. To restore this, I just have to wreck another one. So I thought it'd be a good idea to make a custom out of them both. Taking a closer look at them here off the turntable, you can see how beat up this pickup is. It's been trodden on, I guess. The windscreen is completely smashed. You can see the base is even broken here. The white plastic interior and grille is all perished. And the truck here, it's not actually much to these trucks, they're only a couple of pieces really, and although it's a bit rough, it's in good condition. The windscreen's not broken or anything. It's a little bit of a pity about the style of wheels on the truck, but I guess they could be worse. So my idea to customize them is to have the DAF truck loaded up with the wrecked pickup. Maybe it's taking it off to be restored or taking it to the wreckers. The first step is to take the models apart, beginning with the little pickup here. I just drill out the posts. There's 3 of them in this model. I'm using a 4mm drill to drill them out. I found this has worked on every rivet post I've drilled out so far. And with the post drilled, it came apart quite easily. Now to take apart the truck. It has 3 rivets. It's got 1 holding on the base of the cab there and 2 more holding on this little plastic axle cover. I'll just pop the wheels out of this little plastic suspension plate here. I find it's easier than drilling them out and taking them off and then having to try and put them back in again. Before I strip the cars, I'll just mask off the little plastic suspension plate so that the stripper doesn't dissolve it. And now I use some poly stripper to get rid of the paint on the castings. And here they are, stripped of paint. Well, mostly anyway. That truck body's a pretty cool casting there. Next I give them a clean up with the wire brush and my rotary tool, removing the oxidation and remaining scraps of paint. And here they are after being cleaned up. I'm going to drill and tap this post holding the cast base onto the truck. I'm using a 1.7mm drill and a 256 tap. And once this was done, I can move on and undercoat the truck with some black primer here. I'm going to paint some rust on the headache rack before I paint the rest of the truck so that I can do some salt chipping on it. I start with a dark brown. And then a lighter rust effect over the top, using a sort of stippling effect to get a rough finish. Next, I mask off the underneath of the truck. Now I use some water to stick some ground up salt onto the rusty patch on the headache rack. With my chipping salt applied, I then painted the truck red. It's looking a bit too red there, so I gave it a light spraying with some white as well. This will give it a more of a faded old appearance. Now I can remove the masking from the base of the truck. I use a brush to brush off the salt on the headache rack, revealing the rust underneath. I want a wooden bed on the back of the truck, so I mask that off. Then I spray paint it with brown. Next I dry brush or stipple the bed with a darker brown colour. I give it a dark wash that I've made out of some black and some brown. And I finished it off with a little bit of a dry brushing of grey. Back to the cab of the truck now. I mask off the roof there. This was painted white. Next I detailed the metal parts on the cab, the door handles and the trimmings. Next I paint in some chipping on the cab. I'm only going to paint it in here and there. I start with the dark brown and then I apply just a little bit of the lighter rust effect here and there. I undercoated the base of the truck in black as well. Then I spray painted the tanks there a steel colour. I also detailed the lights and the logo on the grille. Now I'm going to fit it in place on the truck body and add a little bit more rust chipping. I use some metallic weathering powder to detail the small details underneath the truck here. There's a few little wires and hoses, etc. I fit the base back on again and apply some dust weathering powders. And once I'm happy with the weathering, I can take them back apart again and spray them with some matte varnish. Moving on to the pickup now, I've begun by painting this with a rust effect. This was done with a dark brown and then some rusty colours sprayed lightly over the top. I use some water and salt to apply a heavy rust chipping effect. I then painted the truck this nice blue and then some thinned down white lightly over the top to give it that faded appearance. Now to brush off the salt and reveal the rust underneath. Now taking a look at the plastic parts, you can see they are pretty filthy indeed, so the first thing I'll do is take them in and give them a wash in some hot soapy water. Here they are looking a lot cleaner. I don't want these broken pieces of roll cage here, so I'll just cut them off with my craft knife. Now I paint them with some primer. I've painted the two parts of the ute in black and the interior of the truck in white. I airbrush some silver on the metal parts of the interior section here. Then I detail the seat in brown. It's also had a dark wash on it. I add a black wash to the grille. I'm just going to avoid the headlights there. You can see how rough and perished the top of the grille is there. I painted the base of the car in some metal colour burnt steel. I then brushed on some rust weathering powders. Next I brought out some of the details with a little bit of metallic weathering powders. And this was all fixed with a matte varnish. Here is the interior for the truck. I've painted that brown. It was given a brown wash, and then I just detailed the steering wheel. There's nothing wrong with the windscreen here. I'm going to apply some dust weathering to it. And then I'll just rub out some wiper blade marks with this cotton bud here. Here are the original wheels from the Flareside. I actually don't think they're that bad, especially not for an old Beta that I'm doing, so I'm going to reuse them. They've got a nice looking tread on them. I'm just going to have to zhuzh up those rims, so I start by painting them steel. You can see I'm using a damp brush here just to fix up where I've gone over the lines a little bit. Next, a black wash was applied. And finally, just a touch of weathering powder. I used a similar technique on the truck wheels, except I didn't add the weathering powder. Here's the rusty old suspension plate. I'll just clean that up with my rotary tool. That's looking a lot better. Now I'll start assembling the base of the truck. First I put the wheels in place. Next I'm going to use a dab of my Star Bond super glue here. I then spray a little bit of the accelerant on the inside of the suspension plate where I'm going to stick it on, and then I hold it down in place for a few seconds. There, that's holding on nicely. I'll just spray a little bit more accelerant on there to make sure it's fully set. Here are the other parts of the truck. I'll now start putting it together. First the interior and grille section goes in, and then the base just pops on. I'm going to use some black Star Bond super glue here to hold the base in place. I just apply a couple of little blobs there in the rivet holes. Then I lift the base up and put it back on just slightly, so I make sure there's some glue in there. And this glue will set a nice matte black. With the truck together, I'm just going to add a little bit more detailing. First of all, a bit more rust, particularly rusting up this shiny plate on the bed here. I added a black wash to the panel lines just to help bring them out a little bit. I did not forget to detail those door handles there. And finally I add some dust and mud weathering powders. Now to assemble the truck. Here are all the parts ready to go. I begin by putting the windscreen and the interior in. Before I put the base of the cab on, I'll have to pop these wheels back in here. It's a bit of a tight fit, but with a little bit of wiggling and bending you can get them in there. Just try not to scratch your paint job too much while you're doing this. Now the base goes in place and I can screw it in with a flathead screw. The rear wheels are put in place, and then I put the little axle cover on. See, I've detailed this with a little bit of rust and weathering powders, and I'm going to use the black super glue to hold this in place as well. With my cars assembled, all I had to do was make a couple of little chains to hold the pickup on the back. But before we take a look at our finished custom DAF truck and Flareside pickup, let's just take a moment to look back and be reminded of what we started with. A fairly play-worn old pallet truck that's missing its pallets, and a proper diecast disaster of a Flareside pickup that is possibly beyond restoration. So let's see what we can do with them. And here they are, our customised DAF truck and wrecked Flareside pickup. The truck has been repainted, detailed and weathered. Maybe it's a truck belonging to the wreckers or an old farm truck. And our old wrecked Flareside has also been painted up blue and given some heavy rusty chipping effects. I guess the farmer rolled it one day and then dumped it in a paddock somewhere to rust away, and now he wants to get rid of it, or maybe somebody bought it because they want to restore it. This project was great fun and I'm really happy with how it came out. I think it's a good way to use that beat up old Flareside, and I think the DAF truck really suits the weathered effect. You can let me know what you think in the comments down below. I now welcome all of my new subscribers, and as always say a massive thanks to everyone for the great comments and likes on my videos, and an extra special thanks to my awesome Patreon supporters who help to support the channel through Patreon. I welcome Nathan O'Brien as my latest supporter. Thanks heaps, mate. Nathan has also sent some awesome cars into the channel, including the Crack-Ups, the Batmobile and the A-Team van, so you can thank him heaps for getting a chance to see those vehicles get restored. If you'd like to join them supporting the channel and get to see your name in the credits, you can check out my Patreon page. There's a link in the description below. There's also a link to get 10% off of Starbond glue with the code DANNY10. So if you want some awesome super glue and accelerant, I recommend taking advantage of that. And that just leaves me to say thanks heaps for watching the video. I really hope you enjoyed it. If you did, remember to subscribe, give it a thumbs up and share it with your friends.